All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Ghostbusting Men. Diffusing Derrida's deconstructive time bomb. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Title. Subtitle. The hidden logic behind the public ritual. I absorbed the essay, ensuring fairness by acknowledging its core truth. The writer is exhausted. She portrays a wife bearing the domestic burden, laundry, kids, debts, isolation, while her husband hides behind her door, crafting his persona, recording audio, and projecting ease to a lens that ignores her reality. That woman is real. Her weariness is tangible. She has been overlooked, silenced, and diminished by a partner who confused his drive with moral superiority and treated her devotion as background decoration. Yet the essay shifts from personal account to absolute rule. It lifts her exhaustion and constructs a worldview from it. It labels a flawed union patriarchal hegemony. It names a self-centered husband the architecture of male disappearance. It interprets a slammed door as discursive violence. In this move, it slips in a premise so extreme the writer hardly realizes she has admitted it. Male interiority holds no weight. When a man steps back to think, he is not focusing but erasing her. When he draws a line, he is not guarding his mind. He is colonizing attention. When he builds a site about his own path, he is not making art. He is monumentalizing erasure. This is not an argument. This is a poisoned epistemology. It takes the most ordinary acts of male purpose, focus, ambition, discipline, solitude, and reclassifies them as crimes. It does not ask for evidence. It does not offer a falsifiable claim. It simply declares that any space a man builds, any frame he holds, any door he closes, is by definition an act of war against the woman who lives in his house. This is not justice. This is the abolition of the male soul by administrative fiat. The essay asks, with theatrical gravity, who built the room? It expects the answer to condemn the man. But the answer is the most damning fact she cannot face. He did. He earned the mortgage. He framed the walls. He paid the taxes. He maintained the structure. He provided the roof under which she writes essays about how oppressed she is. She lives inside the room, furnished by his labor, heated by his earnings, protected by the walls he raised, and her response is to write an essay demanding those walls be torn down because they do not feature her face. This is not erasure. This is ingratitude so total it constitutes a moral disorder. She labels her fury a subpoena. Yet, a subpoena demands proof, procedure, clear charges, and an impartial judge. What she offers is the reverse. Unproven complaints, unattainable rules, no chance to answer, and a fixed outcome. This is no subpoena, it is a kangaroo court. She has constructed a whole way of understanding, a structure, a system of meaning that turns her valid rage into metrics of his worth. Her pain becomes his performance review. Her suffering serves Ashi's status confirmation. She is not indicting him, she is testing him, and when he refuses to fail the test, she escalates from marital complaint to civilizational indictment. The piece concludes with a stark warning: the door comes off the frame. This is no mere figure of speech. It represents the inevitable endpoint of radical feminism. Every limit imposed on men must vanish. Every area reserved for them must be occupied. Every male goal must bow to female emotional needs. The argument seeks more than parity. It demands the removal of male control over everything, even his own focus. Remove the academic jargon, and the demand is clear. A man who is perpetually present, constantly attentive, never drifting, never shutting out, never constructing his life without her as the axis, never at rest unless she is satisfied. This is not a spouse, it is a paid attendant. The text does not outline freedom. It paints the woman's dream of a man locked in endless emotional labor while he continues alone to pay the bills she declines to cover. I will say it plainly, nature is not bigotry, a door is not violence. Provision is not erasure. Gratitude is not submission. The man who closes a door to build is not your enemy. He is the reason you have a room to scream in at all. And if you tear down every door he ever built, you will not find liberation. You will find rubble. You will find silence. You will find the cold wind of a civilization that forgot that men who build rooms are the ones who keep the wolves out. The door comes off the frame, fine, but do not be surprised when the house collapses around you.
Buncombe article by a feminist PhD. He built the room. Don't ask Famun to scream in it. Hegemonic erasure and the architecture of male disappearance. By Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist PhD.
He hangs a do not disturb sign on his door and calls it boundaries. You hang one on yours and he calls it withholding. He has confidence on camera and calls it leadership. You have it and he calls it vanity. He designs a website that centers himself in every pixel and calls it branding. You notice the pattern and he calls you difficult. This is not a series of misunderstandings. This is hegemonic erasure, the male practice of constructing every room, every lens, every platform, every discourse, every sign, and then positioning your reaction to that construction as the problem. He built the room. Don't ask permission to scream in it. I, the do not disturb, sing as discursive weapon. Marcus, let us call him Marcus because he is always called Marcus or David or my partner or the father of my children, or whatever title makes his erasure of you sound like an institution worth preserving. Marcus hangs a do not disturb sign on his home office door. It is Tuesday. It is always Tuesday. It is Tuesday for 6 years. Behind that door, he is building something. He is decompressing. He is protecting his peace. You knock anyway, not because you lack respect for boundaries, but because your daughter is crying, or because the mortgage is due, or because you have not been spoken to as a full human being in 11 days. And the silence has begun to feel geological, like you are being buried in real time by a man who once told you that you were his everything. He opens the door. He does not look at you. He looks at the disruption. You are the disruption. Your need is the noise. Your existence at his threshold is a violation of his space, a space he built inside a home you maintain, with children you raise, on sleep you sacrifice, so that he can have a door at all. And here is what he says with the flatness of a judge who has already decided, I told you I need quiet. 4 words, no cruelty in the syntax, no weapon visible, and yet you feel yourself shrink. You feel the apology rise in your throat like bile. You say sorry, you close the door. You go back to the child, the laundry, the unpaid invoice, the loneliness that has its own postal code now. This is discursive violence. Discursive violence is not the slap. It is not the scream. It is the architecture of language and gesture that positions his peace as sacred and your need as intrusive, and does it so smoothly that you perform the erasure yourself. You apologize, you withdraw. You make yourself smaller inside a house. Your labor keeps standing. The do not disturb sign is not paper. It is a claim on reality. It says, my interiority is sovereign. Yours is negotiable. It says, I am entitled to silence. You are obligated to serve. It says, this door is mine. The house around it is also mine. You are welcome here conditionally. And the condition is that you do not disturb. And what disturbs him, your pain, your anger, your body, your no. The do not disturb sign is patriarchy's smallest monument, a rectangle of borrowed authority. A man who cannot hold space for another person's inner life prints a command and hangs it like a warrant, and the entire household, the woman, the children. The dog reorganizes around his fragility like it is a weather system, because it is. To weigh confidence on Shamara. the performative phallus. Now watch him at work, or on Zoom, or on LinkedIn. Or on the podcast he started with his friend Trent, where they sit in front of microphones they cannot afford and discuss discipline for 47 minutes. He has confidence on camera. The jaw is set. The lighting is warm. He speaks in declarative sentences. He uses words like leverage and optimize and own your morning. He nods at other men's points with the generosity of a king granting land. He leans back in his chair, the ergonomic one you found on sale and ordered during your lunch break, and he holds court. And the camera loves him because the camera was designed by men like him to reward the specific frequency of male self-regard that mistakes itself for substance. He is performing competence. And the performance is so seamless, so rehearsed, so backlit that no one asks whether the competence exists behind the lens. No one asks what he is like when the camera is off and the door is closed and a woman is crying in the kitchen because she has not been touched, not sexually, not casually, not on the shoulder, not at all in a month. Because here is the truth no one with a Y chromosome wants to hear. The camera confidence is the mask. The do not disturb sign is the face. On camera, he is someone. Off camera, he is a man who cannot tolerate being needed by the people who need him most. On camera, he projects. Off camera, he projects his inadequacy onto you, his failure onto your tone, his spiritual starvation onto your body, which he has decided is the cause and not the casualty of his dissatisfaction. The confidence on camera is not confidence. It is colonization of attention. He has learned to occupy the frame so fully that no one notices what is missing. Your face, your voice, your fury. Your 57 hours of weekly unpaid labor that makes his platform possible. He does not ask you to appear on the podcast. He does not mention you in the LinkedIn post about grit. You are not in the frame because the frame was never big enough for two. It was built for one ego and one ego only. And that ego uses words like self-made while sleeping on sheets you wash. This is patriarchal hegemony in its most intimate form. The man who builds his public self on the foundation of your private service, and never, not once names the architect, 3 web design as the digital wall of the father. And then there is his website. Every man has a website now. A portfolio, a landing page, a personal brand, a manifesto about intentional living or minimalist fatherhood or classical masculinity. Always classical. Always with a marble bust or a Stoic quote, as if quoting Marcus Aurelius compensates for the fact that he has not looked his own son in the eye since Tuesday. The web design is clean. The web design is always clean. White space, strong typography, a hero image of him in a chambray shirt, looking thoughtfully at something outside the frame, something that is almost certainly a trash can or a parking lot. But the depth of field makes it look like destiny. The navigation is simple, about work, philosophy, contact. Notice what is missing. There is no page called What I Owe, no tab for Who Made This Possible, no drop-down menu titled The Woman Who Typed Every One of These Sentences while I dictated from the shower. His web design is a digital extension of the Do Not Disturb sign, a curated enclosure that centers his interiority, his journey, his process, while rendering invisible the infrastructure emotional, domestic, reproductive, logistical that holds him aloft. The website says, I am a thinker, I am a builder, I am a man of depth and discipline. The reality says, I have not washed a dish in 9 years, and I believe this is because I am an intellectual. This is not a joke. This is hegemonic erasure at the level of code. The web design encodes the patriarchal assumption that male self-presentation is content and female labor is context. His story is the homepage. Your story is the 404 page, the error that appears when someone goes looking for what is missing, and the system cannot find it because it was never indexed, never tagged, never given a URL. He built the website the way he built the family, with you as the back end and him as the interface. And when the site goes live, when the world sees his chambray shirt and his marble bust and his quote about virtue, he receives the applause, and you receive nothing. Because nothing is what the architecture was designed to give you. Or free representation, fatigue being sin, but never witness it. And so we arrive at the exhaustion, the deep, marrow-level exhaustion that every woman I know, every woman in my coven, my classroom, my DMs, my group chat, my therapy practice, my satellite orbit of brilliant, furious, tired women carries like a second skeleton. We call it representation fatigue. Representation fatigue is not the fatigue of being unseen. That would be simpler. That would be a problem you could solve with visibility. More women on panels, more women in film, more women on boards, more women on camera, with confidence, with warm lighting, leaning back in ergonomic chairs. No. Representation fatigue is the exhaustion of being seen and still not witnessed. You are visible now. The patriarchy has allowed you to be visible. In fact, it has made a market of your visibility. Your face sells empowerment. Your anger sells think pieces. Your body sells both revolution and reaction. You are represented, you are on the magazine cover, you are in the boardroom, you are on the panel where 5 white men in chambray shirts lean in to hear your perspective. And none of them, not one, has ever asked you what it cost to get here. None of them has looked at you and seen the years of being the back end, the infrastructure, the 404 page. None of them has witnessed the do not disturb signs you lived behind. The confidence you performed in bathrooms before walking into rooms that were not built for your voice. The websites you built for his brand, while yours gathered dust in a folder on your desktop labeled Someday. You are seen but not witnessed. You are represented but not known. And the fatigue, the bone deep, soul deep, Kierkegaard would have a word. For this fatigue comes from the gap between what they show of you and what they refuse to hold. They will put you on camera. They will not ask why you are crying off it. They will feature your voice. They will not listen to what it is actually saying. They will design a web page for your story. They will not make you the homepage. This is the final violence. The violence of being included in a structure that was never built to hold you, and being told by men with podcasts and marble busts and do not disturb signs that you should be grateful. V. What he calls your shit test is actually his subpoena. And here is where it gets dangerous, sisters. Here is where the architecture reveals its cruelest feature. When you notice all of this, when you name it, when you refuse it, when you knock on the door, when you demand a page on the website, when you stop performing confidence for his camera and start directing your own, he has a word for what you are doing. He calls it a shit test. He has forums for this. He has communities. He has men, thousands of them, millions, in group chats and subreddits and Telegram channels and podcast comments, who teach each other that your anger is a test of his strength. Your tears are a bid for control. Your exhaustion is a manipulation tactic, and your demand to be witnessed is hypergamy in a wig. He has reframed your subpoena as his obstacle course. You are serving him papers. You are indicted for years of emotional abandonment, domestic exploitation, and ontological theft, and he is filing the papers under fitness test and smirking. This is discursive violence in its most sophisticated form. He has built an entire epistemology, a way of knowing, a framework, a web of meaning that converts your legitimate rage into data about his value. Your pain becomes his performance review. Your suffering becomes his status confirmation. You say, I am lonely. He hears, she is testing whether I will chase her. You say, I need help. He hears, she is testing whether I will comply. You say, I am tired of being invisible. He hears, she is testing whether I will hold frame. And so he holds frame. He does not move. He does not soften. He does not open the door. He holds, like a soldier, like a wall, like a man who has been taught that the highest virtue is not love, but not flinching, when the woman in his life begs him to see her. He has built a philosophy out of not hearing you. He calls it strength. He calls it frame. He calls it masculinity. He has websites about it. He has web design for it, clean white space, strong typography, a hero image of a man with his arms crossed looking at something beyond the frame, something that is almost certainly his own reflection in a window he has mistaken for the horizon. Zix the truth he cannot index. So here is what I want you to know, and I want you to know it in your body, not just your mind, because your mind has been colonized by his frameworks and your body is the last territory that is still yours. You are not testing him. You are indicting him. Your anger is not a test, it is a subpoena. Your tears are not a bid for control. They are the cost of carrying his performance while he rehearses it on camera. Your exhaustion is not hypergamy, it is the invoice, the bill that comes due when a woman spends years holding up a ceiling that was built to crush her, and the man underneath it calls the ceiling his house. And his response to your indictment, the reframing, the smirk, the holding frame, the philosophy, the forums, the podcast, the do not disturb sign, the confidence on camera, the clean web design, is not strength. It is hegemonic erasure. It is the architecture of a civilization, patriarchal, capitalist, logos-obsessed, building-obsessed, frame-obsessed, that cannot survive the question you are asking because the question is, who built the room? And the answer is, you did, and he locked you out of it, Sev, the only. Frame is the one she breaks. So do not ask permission, do not knock on the door, do not wait for him to give you a page on his website. Do not perform confidence for his camera and call it empowerment. Do not represent his brand of feminism, the kind that fits inside his frame, his language, his clean design, his comfortable narrative of equality that somehow always ends with you doing the dishes while he optimizes his morning routine. The do not disturb sign is not a boundary, it is a battleground. The confidence on camera is not leadership, it is concealment. The web design is not a brand, it is a monument to erasure. And your fatigue, your deep, holy, feral fatigue, is not weakness. It is the energy of a woman who has been seen 1,000 times and witnessed never, and who is about to stop asking to be let into the room and start tearing down the wall. He built the room. Don't ask permission to scream in it. Hegemonic erasure ends when we stop performing for the camera he built and start directing our own. The do not disturb sign comes off the door, or the door comes off the frame.
His choice, but not for long. Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist, PhD, is professor of gender studies, High Coven member, Satanic Church witch, and sworn cultural Marxist.
Her next book, The Frame is a Cage, Dismantling the Architecture of Male Attention, will be published whenever a woman is given a publishing deal that does not require her to thank a man in the acknowledgments. The Epistemological Fraud, Deconstructing Hegemonic Erasure as Self-Refuting Postmodern Vandalism, now the term around which the entire essay orbits, hegemonic erasure, track the etymology. Hegemon, from the Greek ongimon, meaning leader or ruler, erasura, from the Latin eradere, to scrape clean, to obliterate. The compound sounds structural, diagnostic, clinical, but what does it mean in practice? Here is the unfalsifiable mechanism. Any male space, by definition, erases the female. If a man works, he erases. If he sleeps, he erases. If he breathes inside a room he paid for, his breathing is erasure. The term is designed to convict before evidence is heard. There is no state of male existence that does not constitute hegemonic erasure, because the theory defines male existence itself as the crime. This is what logicians call a self-sealing theory, a claim immunized against disconfirmation by the fact that its conclusion is already embedded in its premises. Ask the question that dismantles it. What would disprove the claim that male space erases the female? No answer exists. The theory has no falsifier. It is not critique. It is a confession of faith dressed in the robes of scholarship, and it should be treated with precisely the intellectual respect we give to any dogma that declares disagreement proof of guilt. Now apply the simplest moral test, the sex swap. Take every act the essay condemns, reverse the sexes, and observe what happens to the moral meaning. A man hangs a do not disturb sign that is discursive violence, patriarchy's smallest monument, a claim on reality that says, my interiority is sovereign, yours is negotiable. A woman hangs the same sign on the same door of the same house. That is self-care, boundary setting, protecting her peace. The sacred, non-negotiable prerogative of a woman who has been doing the emotional labor. He has confidence on camera, that is colonization of attention, the performative phallus. She has confidence on camera, that is empowerment, leaning in, owning her voice. He designs a website that centers himself, that is a digital wall of the father. She designs a website that centers herself, that is personal branding, building her platform, manifesting her truth. The asymmetry is not subtle. It is the engine of the entire essay. Female distress is foregrounded as cosmic injustice. Male distress does not exist on the map. Her fatigue is tragedy. His workload is scenery. His closed door is aggression. Her interruption is courage. This is the precise mechanism of what we should call asymmetric moral optics, the same act judged by different moral standards depending on the sex of the actor. It is the emotional engine of every policy, every HR training, every family court affidavit, every campus tribunal that treats female accusation as evidence and male defense as aggression. The essay does not describe this mechanism. It is this mechanism rendered as literary genre. The phrase discursive violence deserves a grammar audit that would make a medieval schoolmaster weep. Violentia, from the Latin, physical force, coercion, credible threat of bodily harm. The word has a stable meaning because stable meaning is the precondition of law, of justice, of civilization itself. Redefining a closed door as violence is an act of semantic inflation so extreme it collapses the distinction between offense and harm, between feeling wounded and being injured. This equivocation allows the author to claim victimhood without producing a victim, to demand restitution without demonstrating injury, and to summon the moral gravity of assault for the crime of a man wanting quiet while he works. When a civilization's intelligentsia begins calling closed doors violence, that civilization has forgotten what violence is. And when a civilization forgets what violence is, actual violence against men by women enabled by the state proceeds under cover of the linguistic fog. Consider, women initiate domestic violence at rates equal to or exceeding men in multiple large-scale studies, including the landmark work of Strauss and Gels. Male victims are mocked, ignored, or reclassified as aggressors. Women receive 63% shorter sentences than men for identical crimes. False allegation rates in custody disputes range from 15% to over 50% depending on jurisdiction. Meanwhile, a man closing a door to finish a report is the one accused of violence. This is not progress. It is a moral inversion so total it can only be called diabolical, and I use that word with full theological weight. The epistemology at work here is the exact pattern of motivated cognition that characterizes what we might call desire-first reasoning. The conclusion is selected first, then the intellectual framework is reverse-engineered to justify it. She wants his attention. She does not get it. She constructs a metaphysics in which his absence is structural violence. Feeling is dressed as fact. Appetite is baptized as justice. This is not scholarship. This is a tantrum with footnotes, and the tell is always the same, selective rationality. When it comes to what she is owed, she can count to the penny, every hour, every chore, every sacrifice catalogued and invoiced. When it comes to what she owes, arithmetic dissolves into poetry. It's not about the facts. It's about how I feel. You're being invalidating the mind that can produce receipts for every debt owed to her, and amnesia for every debt owed by her, is not operating in the domain of reason. It is operating in the domain of appetite, and appetite has no ceiling when it is told that its every frustration is someone else's crime. The postmodern roots of this essay are not hidden. They are the essay's skeletal system. Stable meaning is dissolved at every level. Violence no longer means violence. Erasure no longer means erasure. Boundary no longer means boundary. Words become weapons whose definitions shift to preserve the sacred victim narrative regardless of what happened. But here is the self-refutation that should end the conversation. If all meaning is power, then this essay is not true, it is merely a power grab. If there is no objective truth, then the claim that male space is violent cannot be objectively true. If all frameworks are constructs, then feminism is a construct. The essay uses the tools of reason to declare reason a weapon. It deploys stable definitions to argue that definitions are unstable. It publishes arguments on platforms built by men, transmitted through protocols engineered by men, on devices manufactured by men to declare that male-built architecture is illegitimate. The parasite cannot exist outside the host. The academic uses the master's tools to burn the master's house while standing inside it. This is self-refutation so thorough it should be taught in logic classes as a textbook example of the performative contradiction. This essay coins the term representation fatigue to describe the exhaustion of being visible yet unperceived. What lies beneath this label is a soul whose existence hinges on outside approval, only to find the world lacks sufficient mirrors. The weariness stems not from systemic injustice, but from the dizzying void of a self devoid of inner depth, a spirit unformed from within, colliding with the boundaries of its own performance. When existence relies on perception, with the lens as conscience and the crowd as identity, then silence feels like erasure. Yet this is not a political grievance, it is a spiritual crisis. The individual who cannot endure being alone, who fears the quiet of an empty room as if it were the end of existence, is not suffering from societal forgetting. That person is the casualty of never having constructed a self strong enough for solitude, reflection, or an inner life. The remedy for this fatigue is not more visibility. It is interiority, which no lens can capture and no gaze can fill. Consider the essay's treatment of what she calls the shit test. She describes accurately, I will grant, that men in certain communities have developed frameworks for interpreting female emotional outbursts, demands and crises as tests of male strength and frame. She calls this a reframe that converts female rage into data about male value. Her term, his subpoena, has been filed under fitness test. Now here is the projection of staggering proportions. Feminist epistemology has spent 50 years converting male provision into patriarchy, male initiative into toxicity, male competence into privilege, male sexuality into predation, male fatherhood into control, and male existence itself into problematic. The entire feminist apparatus is a machine for converting male behavior into evidence of male guilt. And she has the temerity, the cosmic, jaw-dropping, breathtaking temerity, to accuse men of converting female behavior into data. She is describing her own methodology and pasting it onto her target. This is not analysis. It is a mirror pointed outward and called a window. Consider the Roman foundation, for Rome grasped what this essay has overlooked. The household spirits, the lares and penates, the sacred fire of Vesta were not instruments of tyranny. They were the spiritual bedrock of civilization. The paterfamilias did not lock women out of rooms. He bore the gods through flames. He constructed the shrine. He maintained the fire. He shouldered the weight of piatas, the loyal reverence toward deities, forebears, and the fatherland that made civilization possible. When the critic demands the door come off the frame, she repeats the gesture of the barbarian who burns the hearth and scatters the ashes, because the hearth represents an order she did not build and cannot control. Rome did not fall to external enemies first. Rome fell when the household was hollowed from within, when gratitude became grievance, when duty became entitlement, when the memory of the ancestors became an insult to the ego of the present. The woman who resents the door resents the very mechanism that created the house around it. She is the passenger who curses the shipwright because the cabin has a lock. Imagine the essay's demands fulfilled. Every door removed, every male space abolished, every website shuttered, every man permanently available, emotionally accessible, never focused, never closed, never building, never absent from her field of vision. What remains? Not liberation. A man who cannot close a door cannot write a book, build a company, forge a tool, pray in silence, or earn a living. He cannot create. The essay demands the castration of male purpose and calls it equality. The end state is not a woman witnessed. It is a man dismantled, a household that starves, and a civilization that collapses into the rubble of its own load-bearing walls. And she will stand in the ruins, still holding her do not disturb sign that no longer has a door to hang on, and she will call the rubble liberation. Every great civilization was built by men who closed doors to pray, to think, to work, to build, to govern, to create. There is no cathedral without solitude. There is no constitution without deliberation. There is no household without a man who goes out, works, and comes back having conquered something on behalf of the people who depend on him. The door is not the problem. The door is the engine. Gratitude has vanished from this framework entirely, and its absence is the tell that damns the whole enterprise. Classical civilization, Roman pietas, Christian virtue, and every sane moral order recognize that the household is sustained by mutual sacrifice under reciprocal gratitude. The man provides, the woman nurtures, both sacrifice, both give thanks. The essay's architecture eliminates gratitude like a cancer eliminating healthy tissue. The man's provision is invisible, the woman's labor is infinite. The ledger is rigged before the first transaction. But consider what a civilization without gratitude produces, because we are living inside the results. Birth rates across the developed world have collapsed below replacement, 1.1 in South Korea, 1.2 in Italy, 1.5 in Germany, 1.6 in the United States, trending down. Female happiness has declined measurably since the 1970s, documented in the seminal work of Stevenson and Wolfers. Despite, or rather because of, every ideological demand having been met, marriage rates have cratered. Male suicide rates sit at 3 to 4 times female rates. Men account for over 75% of all suicide deaths. Boys are falling behind in every educational metric. Fatherlessness predicts nearly every social pathology we can measure. Women are empowered, medicated, lonely, and sterile, and the essay's prescription is more of the same. A civilization that replaces gratitude with grievance does not survive 3 generations. We are in the 3rd. The essay rests on an unstated axiom that should be dragged into the light and examined under every lamp available. Male interiority is illegitimate. Female interiority is sacred. A man requiring silence to work is fragility. A woman requiring emotional access is being witnessed. His solitude is pathology. Her dependence is virtue. Apply the same standard to both as logic and justice demand. If his need for solitude is a disorder, her demand for constant attention is also a disorder. If his boundary is violence, her boundary breaking is also violence. The essay refuses reciprocity because reciprocity would dissolve its grievance. But nature does not negotiate. You cannot have the house without the door. You cannot have provision without the man who closes the door to provide. You cannot have civilization without the male interiority that builds it. The hidden premise, once exposed, reveals the essay not as a diagnosis of oppression, but as a demand for annexation. The annexation of male attention, male time, male focus, and male purpose into the bottomless territory of female need. Now perform the fruit test. What civilizations built by this ideology exist? What households thrive under its principles? What children flourish when the father's work is called violence and the mother's resentment is called justice? The fruit of feminist grievance theory is everywhere visible, and it is poison, collapsed fertility. Atomized individuals, fatherless boys medicated into compliance, girls raised to view marriage as oppression and motherhood as waste. Antidepressant dependency at record levels across the Western world, over 1 in 4 women in their 40s and 50s on psychiatric medication in the United States. Women who have achieved every item on the feminist checklist: the career, the apartment, the cat, the title, the independence, only to discover that empowerment tastes like Prozac and Chardonnay at 9 p.m. on a Saturday in an empty apartment that nobody is coming home to. The fruit is not flourishing. The fruit is the civilization eating its own seed corn and calling it liberation. Judge the tree by what it produces after the harvest, not after the slogan, "The harvest is in, it is bitter." Here lies the essay's final twist, its slip, its truth. The writer's biography labels her a satanic church witch and a sworn cultural Marxist. She offers this as irony, as a bold flourish, as a secret nod to those in the know. Yet it is not irony. It is the most truthful line in the whole piece. The writing enacts the classic reversal with the exactness of a ritual. The provider becomes the exploiter. The resenter of provision is the victim. The line that allows work to happen becomes a cage. The push to erase every line becomes freedom. The wall that keeps out the storm becomes a trap. The tool that breaks it becomes right. Isaiah 5-20. Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness. This is not imagery. It is the precise theological move the text makes, even if its creator misses it. The inversion of moral reality stands not as a stylistic trick. It is the oldest gesture in the book, and the book is very old indeed. The essay asks who built the room. The answer is the man who is trying to work in it. The essay demands the door come off. The answer is without doors there are no rooms. Without rooms there are no houses. Without houses there are no civilizations. Without men who close doors to build, there is nothing for women to complain inside of. Nature is not bigotry. A door is not violence. Provision is not erasure. Gratitude is not submission. And the woman who cannot tolerate the sound of a door closing is not the victim of hegemonic erasure. She is the beneficiary of a civilization she did not build, maintained by men she does not thank, living in a house she did not pay for, demanding that the man who built it tear it down so she can feel seen. The door stays on the frame. The work continues. The civilization endures, or it does not, and the bill comes due in a language nobody will be able to dispute, because the people who could have argued back will have been taught that argument itself is violence, and they will have believed it, and they will have gone quiet, and the silence that follows will not be the silence of a man working. It will be the silence of a house with no one left to build it. I am not speaking metaphorically when I say that men built this. I am speaking historically, archaeologically, and with the full weight of the Western canon behind every syllable. Every civilization that has endured on this earth was built by men who understood that the work came first, that the grain had to be grown before anyone could afford the luxury of complaining about the farmer's silence. And no civilization understood this more clearly than the one that gave us the word virtus itself, not as an abstraction, not as a feeling, but as the literal weight of a man's labor measured against what he owed to the household, the city, and the dead whose graves he tended before he sat down to eat. The unwitnessed bill, how female entitlement, projection, and private logic invert the ledger of civilization. A Roman farmer named Cincinnatus was plowing his field, 4 acres of stubborn earth, his hands blistered, his back bent when the messengers came. The republic was dying. The enemy was at the gates. The Senate had voted him dictator, absolute authority for 6 months to save the city. He took the office, raised the legions, crushed the enemy in 15 days, and then walked back to his plow. He did not write a manifesto about how the plow had erased him. He did not accuse Rome of failing to witness his interiority while he saved it. He went home, picked up the blade, and returned to the dirt, because the dirt was where men did the work that kept everyone alive. That was 2,400 years ago, and nothing about the male sex has changed except the language we use to complain about how ungrateful the people we feed have become. Our new feminist intellectuals are not Cincinnatus. They are the people who ate the grain, wore the tunics, slept behind the walls, and then wrote essays about how the farmer's silence in the field was a form of discursive violence because he did not make eye contact while plowing. The discipline of evolutionary psychology has spent 4 decades documenting what every farmer, sailor, soldier, and father in human history already knew. Women test men. This is not misogyny. It is biology with a publishing schedule. David Buss's cross-cultural study of 37 societies found that women consistently prioritize resources, ambition, and social status in mate selection, while men consistently prioritize youth and physical attractiveness. The mechanisms are not mysterious. Women bear the higher reproductive cost: pregnancy, lactation, vulnerability, dependency. So they evolve to assess male competence, resilience, and protectiveness. The assessment is the test. Will he hold up when things go wrong? Will he provide when resources are scarce? Will he stay calm when I am not calm? These questions are older than language. They are written into the architecture of female desire. And they are not pathological. They are the reason the species survived. But there is a point where the test stops being assessment and starts being destruction. When a man works 12 hours to fund a household and the woman frames his absence as abandonment, the test has become a trap. When a man sets a boundary and the woman frames his boundary as violence, the test has become pathology. Our author describes this pathology in clinical detail and then baptizes it as justice. She is not indicting the man. She is confirming the diagnosis while renaming the disease. Now let me tell you about the do not disturb sign. The Benedictine rule written 1500 years ago by a man who understood that civilization requires silence, mandated ora et labora, prayer and work. But woven through the rule of Saint Benedict like thread through linen is the discipline of silence. Benedictines took vows of silence not because they hated conversation, but because they understood what every builder, writer, coder, surgeon, and architect understands. Concentrated labor requires withdrawal from the social field. The medieval guild workshop was not an open-door therapy session. The apprentice did not interrupt the master to ask whether the master witnessed his feelings about the lathe. The trivium itself, grammar, logic, rhetoric, demands what our author calls discursive violence, the withdrawal of attention from noise to focus on structure, on sequence, on the mind's disciplined encounter with reality. The do not disturb sign is the secular descendant of the monastic cell. It is the architecture of male production. And production is what buys the house, the door, the sign, the paper, and the 11 days of groceries our author consumes, while composing her grievance manifesto about the man who paid for the desk she writes it on. The term emotional labor arrived in English in 1983 via Arlie Hochschild's The Managed Heart, defining the work of flight attendants and bill collectors who manage their professional effect as a job requirement. Pay attention to this precision. What followed stands as a masterclass in linguistic theft, a comparison as valid as noting gay once meant cheerful. Feminism extracted a technical concept from organizational psychology, drained its original meaning, filled it with every shade of female irritation or despair, then passed off this bloated token as having the weight of true work. Hence, a woman lounging on a sofa, thumbing through Instagram, nursing resentment that her spouse is in the other room generating the cash that pays for her leisure. This counts as emotional labor. Meanwhile, a man toiling at a job he loathes under a supervisor who humiliates him, bearing the crushing knowledge that dismissal spells household ruin for decades, suffering physical breakdown from the grind of provision and dying 7 years earlier on average from the sheer weight of duty. This is invisible. The accounting is not just off, it is fraudulent. The essay ends with a threat. The door comes off the frame, his choice. But not for long, read that again. Read it the way you would read it. If a man wrote it to a woman, the door comes off the frame, her choice. But not for long. You would call the police, you would file a restraining order. You would recognize it for what it is, a declaration that the other person's boundaries, property, and sovereignty will be destroyed if they are not voluntarily surrendered. But because a woman wrote it, because a feminist wrote it, because it was dressed in the vocabulary of liberation, it gets published, applauded, assigned in gender studies courses, and treated as courage rather than the totalitarian threat it transparently is. This is the logical terminus of the ideology, the abolition of male sovereignty over anything, his time, his space, his attention, his silence, his purpose, his body, his labor, his thought. What the essay demands is not equality. What it demands is the total colonization of male interiority by female emotional appetite. The Romans had a word for a household where one person's moods governed every soul within it, and no door could close against the sovereign's whim. They called it tyranny. Observe the essay's architecture, for it is deliberate. The writer portrays a man who labors, earns, provides, keeps boundaries, maintains composure, and pursues his mission. She paints herself as one who knocks on his door, resents his focus, envies his platform, uses the children's tears as proof against him, and decides his peace is violence. Then she labels this pattern his abuse. In forensic psychology, we know this tactic. Darvo, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. The disruptor accuses the builder. The emotionally unstable points the finger at the stable one. The one who rejects the limit calls the limiter cruel. This piece does not outline male tyranny. It enacts Darvo across its full length. The man who shut the door to work suffers from someone who cannot bear not being the center of his universe. The writer has merely swapped the roles. Classical civilization honored women who guarded the household, embodied virtue, and acted with moral clarity. Lucretia, whose rape and subsequent suicide catalyzed the Roman Republic's founding, did not write essays about how her feelings were not being witnessed. Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi, did not demand that Rome applaud her emotional labor. When a noblewoman asked Cornelia to show her jewels, Cornelia pointed to her sons and said, "These are my jewels." She did not point to a folder on her desktop labeled Someday. The women honored by the Western canon were honored because they built not websites, not personal brands, not grievance portfolios, but human souls, moral order, household continuity, civic virtue. Our author's subject builds nothing. She guards nothing. She transmits nothing except resentment. She is not Cornelia. She is the late imperial decadent subject, given everything, grateful for nothing, demanding more because she has never been told no by a civilization that lost the nerve to draw the line. There is a folder on her desktop labeled Someday. I want you to sit with that detail because it is the most honest sentence in the entire essay. Someday. Someday she will write the book. Someday she will launch the website. Someday she will build the thing. But not today. Today she is knocking on his door. Today she is composing grievances. Today she is in the group chat. Today she is performing fatigue for the coven. The man she describes did not have a folder labeled Someday. He had a website that launched. He had a podcast that aired. He had camera presence that existed. The gap between her folder and his homepage is not evidence of his privilege. It is evidence of his discipline. He worked while she waited. He shipped while she resented. He built while she complained that the building excluded her. The Someday folder is not a tragedy. It is a confession, the unconscious admission that she had the same hours, the same opportunities, the same access, and she chose grievance over creation. His website is not her erasure. It is her mirror, and she cannot bear to look at what it shows. The writer labels male public confidence as the colonization of attention. Consider a basic mental exercise. Individual A spends 8 hours in a sealed room, creating material that viewers willingly engage with. Individual B breaks into A's workflow 11 times weekly, demands emotional focus, exploits the children's upset as leverage, resents every moment A spends on matters unrelated to B, and composes a 3,000-word argument claiming A's closed door constitutes violence. Who is actually seizing whose attention? The answer is so plain that posing it feels like an insult. Yet the whole feminist machine of hegemonic erasure exists to keep it unasked. The true taker of focus is the one who cannot stand not being the main event in someone else's inner world. The man on screen is working for folks who pick to look. The woman at the threshold is working for a man who has no way out. Here is what the essay actually wants, stripped of its theoretical costume. It wants a man who is always available, always attentive, never focused on anything that does not include her, never closed, never building without her at the center, never at peace unless she has first been appeased. This is not a husband. This is an emotional concierge with a paycheck. The essay does not describe liberation. It describes the female fantasy of a man reduced to permanent, undivided, uninterrupted psychological servitude, while still somehow earning the income, paying the mortgage, fixing the roof at midnight, carrying the insurance and dying 7 years early so she can inherit the house and write more essays about how she was erased. The thing she calls witness is not mutual recognition. It is the demand that a man abolish his telos, his purpose, his mission, his masculine function, so that he can serve as a full-length mirror in which she never has to see a flaw. The writer labels her rage a subpoena. Let us unpack that term, for its definition holds weight. A subpoena is a formal command from a court demanding the surrender of proof. It lists the specific papers, testimony, or items required. It follows set procedures. The person receiving it may contest it, seek to void it, or raise objections. A neutral body oversees the matter. Rules govern what counts as proof. Opposing sides question witnesses. The accuser must prove their case. What the essay presents lacks all these features. No specific charges appear, only a hazy resentment. No proof exists, merely feelings masquerading as facts. No impartial judge stands watch. She holds the roles of prosecutor, judge, jury, and executioner. No chance for reply remains. His defenses instantly become guilt. No burden of proof applies. The accusation itself serves as proof. This is not a subpoena. It is a kangaroo court, where the writer drapish her personal tribunal in borrowed legal robes, making tyranny sound like justice. The essay mentions a daughter crying. Read that passage again. Read it with the eyes of a father. The mother does not comfort the child. She does not dry the tears. She does not model resilience. She picks up the child's distress like a stone and hurls it at the father's closed door as evidence of his inadequacy. The daughter is not a person in this essay. She is ammunition. Her tears are inventory in the mother's grievance case. The mother has conscripted her own child into an emotional war against the father, and she has done it so reflexively that she does not even recognize what she has done. This is the pattern that family courts, therapy culture, and feminist ideology have institutionalized as empowerment. The weaponization of children against fathers. The reframing of paternal absence at work as paternal abandonment. The conversion of a child's ordinary distress into evidence that the father is unsafe. The father in this essay is not failing his daughter. The mother is using the daughter to fail the father. I want you to count with me. Men account for 93% of workplace fatalities in the United States. Men die by suicide at 3 to 4 times the rate of women. Men are 97% of combat deaths. Men die 5 to 7 years earlier than women. Men are the vast majority of the homeless, the imprisoned, the addicted, the discarded. Men are the net lifetime taxpayers. Women are the net lifetime recipients of state transfer. The invoice our author invokes the bill she claims is overdue is a rounding error next to the invoice men have already paid in blood, labor, silence, and early graves. Female fatigue is real, I grant it. But male disposability is structural. It is built into the architecture of every civilization that has ever existed, and it is the reason any civilization exists at all. The man behind the "Do Not Disturb" sign is not vacationing. He is carrying a load so heavy that if he set it down, the household would collapse. And the woman's contribution to the civilizational ledger is an essay complaining that his effort was insufficiently witnessed. The writer sees that men in digital circles possess a label for her behavior. She treats the term "shit test" like a slur, an armament, a type of intellectual brutality. Yet her own piece validates the claim. She portrays a man who labors, supports, sets limits, and keeps his cool. She casts each action as aggression. She expects him to drop his drive to show affection. When he does not yield, she intensifies. She calls in the kids, the coven, the group chat, academic theory, and the publishing platform to pressure him. This is not an indictment. It is the test expanded to book length. She is demanding that the man prove his strength by surrendering it, prove his love by abandoning his purpose, and prove his humanity by becoming a mirror for her self-regard. When he refuses, when he holds frame, she writes 3,000 words about how the frame is a cage. The cage is not the frame. The cage is her inability to tolerate a man who will not rearrange his soul to accommodate her mood. Scan the site. The writer ridicules the stark layout, the dominant visual, the bold lettering, the denim shirt. She scorns the stone head, the rigid saying, the menu lacking a "what I owe" tab. Yet the mockery hides a veil, and beneath it lies a feeling she cannot voice without revealing herself. Jealousy. She keeps a directory marked someday. He owns a web address. He moved. She lingered. He constructed. She chafed. The site is not erasure. It is proof. Proof that he completed the labor she only imagined, released the work she only saved, faced the crowd she only avoided. The essay is the retaliation of the unlaunched life against the life that did not wait for permission. Her grievance is not that he left her off the front page. Her grievance is that he has a front page and she has a directory. The Someday directory is the most honest statement she made, and she remains unaware of it, because when she glanced at her reflection and saw what it held, she averted her eyes and blamed the man who did not. The classical tradition, the natural law tradition, and ordinary human observation all point to the same reality. The home flourishes through distinction directed toward unity. The man's labor beyond the threshold and the woman's care within it are not oppression. They are complementarity, distinct sacrifices creating a whole that neither could build alone. This is not patriarchy. This is ontology. The essay dismantles this complementarity by insisting on sameness measured by female standards. His efforts must sustain her moods, while her moods demand no reciprocal service. Yet a domestic sphere where one partner's sentiments rule supreme and the other's toil remains unseen is no union. It is despotism with a wedding band. And the culture that codifies this arrangement, erasing male provision while canonizing female complaint, has not advanced beyond Rome. So let me answer the essay's final question. Who built the room? He did. With labor she never matched, focus she resented, discipline she mocked, and sacrifice she has never once named in 3,000 words of calibrated complaint. She did not build the room. She did not pay for the room. She does not maintain the room. She lives inside the room, furnished by his work, heated by his earnings, protected by the walls he raised while she wrote about how the walls were a cage. Provision is not erasure. Gratitude is not submission. A door closed to build is not a prison. But a mind that cannot close its own door to resentment will remain a prisoner of its own design. Long after the man has moved on to build the next room, she will also claim to hate, also refuse to help fund, and also write an essay about from inside it, warm, fed, and ungrateful. Until the walls come down, the grain runs out. And there is no Cincinnatus left to save the Republic from people who confuse the harvest for the hole in the ground. You know what I have stopped doing? I have stopped knocking. Not because I'm cruel, but because the question was never really about the door. The essay you just read, the one dripping with hegemonic erasure and discursive violence, is not a structural diagnosis. It is a love letter written by a woman who has confused entitlement with oppression and ingratitude with justice. The answer to her question is simpler than anything her PhD could conjure. He built the room. He earned the mortgage. He framed the walls. He ran the wiring. He paid the taxes. He sat at the desk inside it and converted silence into provision while she wrote a thesis about how the silence was a weapon. Every civilization you admire was built by men who closed doors. Workshop doors, monastery doors, laboratory doors, study doors, because nothing great was ever forged in a room that could not keep out the person demanding to be the center of it. The Benedictine monk in his cell, the Roman smith at his forge, the apprentice at his bench, all exercise the telos of male labor, which is withdrawal into focus, so that the fruit of that focus can return as shelter, food, security, and inheritance for the very people now lobbying to have the door removed. She calls his silence violence. I call it the sound of a man paying for the house she is standing in. Her invoice is the most audacious accounting fraud since Diocletian debased the coinage. She totals her 57 hours of weekly unpaid labor, as though the house cleans itself for her benefit alone, as though the children are his dependents and not hers, as though the groceries materialize by feminist incantation rather than by the salary deposit his labor generates every 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the actual civilizational ledger, the one she will never audit because it would collapse her entire cosmology, reads like this. Men account for 92% of workplace fatalities in the United States. Men die by suicide at 3 to 4 times the rate of women. Men constitute the overwhelming majority of the homeless, the imprisoned, the addicted, the combat dead. Men die 5 to 7 years earlier. The genetic cuckoldry rate, measured silently in hospitals for decades, runs between 3 and 10% depending on population, meaning hundreds of thousands of men have raised, fed, and loved children who were not theirs. While the culture that produced Dr. Feminist Marxist's essay insists on calling marriage itself an oppressive institution, there are roughly 800,000 divorces per year in the United States. Women initiate between 70 and 80% of them. Family courts award mothers primary custody in the clear majority of contested cases. Fathers who fall behind on support face incarceration. Mothers who obstruct visitation face process. And his closed door is the scandal. Here is what the essay cannot index and what you now can. Every word she redefined was a stolen category. Violence once meant physical force. Now it means a closed door. Erasure once meant destruction of evidence. Now it means a website that does not feature her face. Boundary once meant a limit that protects. Now, when a man draws one, it means abuse. Safety once meant freedom from genuine danger. Now it means freedom from disagreement. This is not argumentation, it is dictionary theft, and the entire feminist academic complex operates by capturing words, inverting their meanings and then punishing anyone who uses the original definitions. The phrase discursive violence is itself the perfect emblem. It sounds like rigor. It functions as a bludgeon, and it requires no evidence because the injured party defines the injury. You cannot cross-examine a feeling. You cannot appeal a vibe. The system is designed, engineered to make male innocence impossible and female grievance unfalsifiable. That is not justice. That is a tribunal. And every man who has sat in a family court waiting room, every father who has been served papers he cannot answer, every husband who has been told that his calm is coldness and his anger is danger, already knows the verdict was written before he walked in. So here is what I want you to carry out of this essay like a shield. You are not the problem she describes. You are the solution she cannot survive without. The man who closes his door to build is not performing fragility. He is performing the oldest sacrifice in the human story, the surrender of immediate comfort for long-term provision. The paterfamilias who carried the household gods through burning Troy did not stop to ask Dido whether she felt witnessed. He carried, he walked, he built the future. Every bridge you cross, every road you drive, every wire delivering these words to your screen, every wall keeping weather from your bed, all of it was built by men who closed doors and worked in silence while the world, including the women they loved, enjoyed the fruits without counting the cost. The gratitude was never the point. The building was the point. And now you have seen the mechanism, the semantic inflation, the gamma bias, the manufactured invoice, the inversion of provision into oppression, the sacred victim ritual that makes your sacrifice invisible and her resentment holy. You cannot unsee it. That is your advantage, that is your armor, so close the door, build the room. And when the pounding starts, when the essay arrives dressed as a subpoena, when the feelings are presented as evidence, when the demand for your attention is framed as the invoice for your existence, do not flinch. Do not explain. Do not apologize for the silence that feeds the household. You are not erasing her. You are creating the world she stands in, and if she tears the door off the frame, let her stand in the draft. You will already be in the next room, building something she cannot reach, cannot name, cannot steal, because you learned finally, irrevocably, that a man who cannot close a door cannot build a civilization. And the men who build civilizations do not ask permission from the people who only know how to complain inside them. Sponsored book, Ghostbusting Men, Diffusing Derrida's Deconstructive Time Bomb. Men aren't haunted houses. But modern culture wants you to think you are a creaky, cobwebbed wreck, forever apologizing for the crime of existing. I learned this the hard way. 10 years ago, I sat in a university seminar where a tenured Derrida disciple told us objective truth was a patriarchal fantasy, male logic, oppressive, fatherhood, a social construct, marriage, slavery. The other students nodded, scribbling notes like dutiful cultists, but I smelled the rot. What began as curiosity about French philosophy became a front row seat to the greatest psychological warfare campaign ever waged against men. And I've spent the last decade mapping its trenches. This book isn't for everyone. If you believe toxic masculinity explains male suicide rates better than fatherless homes do, close this. Now go binge Netflix, collect stamps, whatever. But if you're among the 72% of young men who feel progressive dogma clawing at your sanity, if you've watched boys raised on Ritalin and guilt collapse into porn or political apathy, keep reading. I'll show you the wires. How Derrida's hauntology turned truth into a ghost story. Why the Frankfurt School swapped Achilles for victimhood porn. How no-fault divorce laws birthed a 50T alimony racket. You'll meet men bankrupted by family courts, artists jailed for carving statues, and CEOs axed for being too leader-like. You'll see data feminists ignore, sons without fathers drop out 4 times more. Testosterone fuels 90% of engineering breakthroughs. MGTOW communities are doubling yearly. This isn't theory, it's survival. Each part, from dismantling woke art movements to restoring Spartan discipline, gives you practical tools. Not comfort, tools. You'll see why toxic femininity locks men into impossible dating traps, how to avoid the beta provider trap, and why AI ethics groups aim to silence male perspectives. We'll bring back what worked, clear logic, biblical leadership, and the bold principles of those who shaped history. I don't care about your feelings, I care about your future. The ghosts are real. They're in your workplace, your gym, your kids' textbooks. Time to stop asking permission to exist. Burn the spectral lies, rebuild, or keep kneeling your call. Ghostbusting Men, Diffusing Derrida's Deconstructive Time Bomb, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.